And then there's a guided meditation for a while. And I'm not sure if Jim is coming today. If he isn't, I'll be doing some movement work. And then there will be some announcements. And then today I'm going to do a Dharma reflection on one of my favorite affects or emotions, fear. It's frightening to think about. It's like, oh no, fear. I came here to get away from that. But please raise your hand if you've been aware of any fear this morning in your life. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Fear. It is an important something to work with. So that's interesting. I can't figure out which way to do this. There we go. So one of the antidotes to fear is taking refuge in that which is free of fear. And in the Buddhist context, that is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Taking refuge in the part of ourselves which is awake. Right now, there's some part of us that is conscious. And I'm of the school or the belief that that awareness is actually not even personal. It's somehow mysteriously the awareness of the universe. It's what the Buddhists call the Buddha nature, or the Christians, the Christ consciousness. And it's not far away, it's right here. And we forget that. We contract into, with fear, we contract into something that is not aware of that capacity. And then when we do open into that kind of being, it reveals to us what's true. And among the things that's true, that is very frightening to us, is that nothing lasts. And that truth, that radical truth of impermanence, unless we really embrace it and acknowledge it, it's always there unsettling us. So that's one of the things we realize. And then the third refuge is in Sangha, or community. The community of practice, the community of all life, and the community of those who've gone before us and who realize the truth of this. So I'm going to take just a moment here to get this tuned. Is that coming out there now? So the words are, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. In the name of the Buddha, or recognizing the truth of that awakeness. And then Dharma, and then Sangha. So please join in as it makes sense to you. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. And once more, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. In the last century, there was a person who became a very famous saint in South India called Ramana Maharshi. When he was about 12, something happened to him. He was somewhere, and he saw a woman feeding her baby, and what he saw, instead of the ordinary, remarkable miracle of that, he saw what he called God pouring God into God. And he never went home. Must have upset his parents. He went to a little hill nearby. They call it a mountain. It's a little hill. And he stayed there the rest of his life. Millions of people went to see him. And he really taught only one practice. And it was the practice of, who am I? Asking oneself that question. Who am I? What am I? What is this? And really, this is the same practice. What is this? What's happening here? And it's remarkably free of dogma or religious belief. It's really a wholehearted exploration. And we have the great good fortune of having had the Buddha appear on the earth, and he was an ordinary human being just like us. And he became troubled by the issues of birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And the fact that life is so frightening, so difficult. And so he went on his quest. He set off and studied with the great teachers of his time, and then went off on his own. And then discovered that there, in fact, is something we can do. And one piece of that is to stop and sit down. In the words of the traditional teachings, placing mindfulness before oneself. Cultivating awareness of what is, beginning with the body and then going on from there to the phenomenons of liking and disliking, and all the mental phenomena that happen, the mental formations, the histories, the stories, the thoughts. And observing the fact of awareness itself, that it exists. In fact, ultimately, becoming awake to all of our experience, even that which we have carefully suppressed, even that which our culture says is not true or unworthy of observation. And we start with something very simple, which is the fact that we're alive. There's a body sitting here and it's full of life. It is life. And it's breathing. And we are not separate from this beautiful little planet that we call home. The trees outside the window are producing oxygen for us. They build branches with the carbon dioxide we exhale. It really is a unified field. And so to practice, we can sit here, notice the fact of breathing in. It really is a pretty big event if we pay attention closely. Breathing in and then breathing out. And then the mind wanders to thinking, planning, remembering emotions like fear, joy, happiness, restlessness. But we can work at training the mind to be here in this present moment, now. So there's an effort of will, and there's some quality of understanding. and a willingness to try the experiment. Come home. Come home to yourself. Come home to this that breathes. But don't start a war. The goal isn't, as is often taught, to stop the mind or to shut up the mind. The goal instead is to radically accept everything that arises. This is, of course, not easy, but it's the direction we travel. So please notice this that you take to be your body. And notice how it lives, how it breathes in and out. This moment right now is the culmination of your entire life. This you arises at this moment. On this little speck of a planet and this arm of a galaxy amongst billions of galaxies. And this you is of the utmost importance, worthy of cherishing. And so we bring love and compassion to our practice. This is breathing in and breathing out as an actual experience. sitting like this with the intention of being awake. Gradually, moment by moment, illuminates that which we are. It illuminates the thoughts and the emotions, the hopes, the fears, the plans, the moods. All those phenomena that we make a person out of and take to be permanent. And so we practice also with great curiosity. What's happening? How intimately can I attend to this experience of breathing? The more refined awareness becomes in concentrating in the breath, the more other details of an unfolding life become visible to us, known to us. you'll probably notice that the mind fabricates or falls into a whole variety of different trances where you experience that which you think of as you awake disappears, and some memories of the past come in. Sometimes they come with emotional states, and guilt, remorse, sometimes happiness, pleasure. And there are the trances that we call the future, the sources of worry, where we create fantasies of loss and catastrophe, and then inhabit those for a while. This practice is centrally about awakening to these past and future states. They only exist in the mind now. So to be here now is a profound relief. The relief. To actually be here in this comfortable room, in this body, breathing, and being awake. It is by design or intention that we take a comfortable upright posture and then sit still. The body then becomes more visible somehow, more noticeable. If you were to broaden your field of awareness, you might notice there are tensions here and there. Maybe aching or pain, coolness, warmth, pleasant sensations. You might come across itches. And for the most part, at least unless some discomfort becomes too great to work with, we allow the itches to itch and the aches to ache. In fact, if something becomes predominant, we might even put aside the breath and then take the predominant sensation as our meditation object. Becoming open in a radically accepting sort of way to everything that occurs in this moment. Perhaps for a moment, let's use our imagination and cognitive capacities and to recognize or remember that at this moment around the world there are tens, hundreds of thousands of people sitting in exactly this way. And we can broaden that into those who are sitting in prayer. The millions of people in churches, mosques, synagogues, in caves, in the desert, that at this moment are in their own way asking this question, really. Who am I? What is this? And seeking to remember our true nature, our vast, infinite being. We're in such good company. You know, we have the sense that, oh, I am meditating now, but we are part of something extraordinarily huge. Supplicants for awakening. Millions of people chanting mantras. Hundreds of millions of people serving someone at their bedside with loving hands, or making a meal to take care of their family. And please now come home to this, that we each take as our body, my body. Notice how alive it is. In fact, that's all we can notice, is that it's alive. Notice that the eyes are closed and there's no seeing. Then become aware of your hands and arms. And notice the intention to let these hands and arms move some. Maybe they'd like to stretch. But let's let this be a stretch that happens in consciousness. Let the hands separate if they're together. And how is it that somehow or another there's a willing or an intention, and then there's this allowing of movement? Totally present. There's no form to follow or no special anything. It's just your body alive, stretching. Come into its beautiful grace. Realizing there's no way to do it wrong. and letting more of your body be involved if you wish. Mindful of the body in its movements, in its postures. This is a bridge to the practices of mindfully putting on clothing, mindfully washing dishes, driving the car, working at your desk, working in the garden. Present in the body. And then finding some way to pause the movement, and the arms and hands could be anywhere. But pause and notice the shape now. And then bringing awareness into that region of the universe that is your eyes. Notice how they feel. Present with them. And then forming the intention, an act of will somehow and of mind, forming the intention to let the eyes open. And then, however that happens, let that occur. Let the eyelid peel up. And then there's objects, seeing. But it's different from ordinary seeing because there's knowing it. Mindful of seeing. Seeing. Many years ago, I was at York University in Toronto doing a master's in environmental studies. Asking the question, if we are part of the earth, how come we don't know it? And how can we get back to that? And I got a wild idea to try to see what it would be like to be blind. And so I put on a blindfold with nice cotton pads, and I had a dear friend who agreed to help me. And I lasted 3 days before I started to absolutely freak out. But during those 3 days, I made a lot of discoveries about seeing and not seeing. Canada, as you probably know, is cold in the winter, and York was connected by tunnels. Like the cities in Canada have lots of connections by tunnel, underground plazas. And within a day and a half, when I was walking in the tunnels, I could hear the tunnels. Tunnels began to become obvious. And much more. So these sense doors, they are part of what happened was I really started freaking out, and because my sense of self was part of vision was one of the ways I reaffirmed myself, and so I began I began to face what any of us would do if suddenly we lost our sight, which would be a profound adjustment. So we can practice seeing. A great way to drive is to be aware of seeing, hearing, sitting, touching, seeing, checking the mirror, seeing, turning left, noticing that, watching the world change as I turn. So let's be alive in the body, conscious of the body. And let's notice how it would be if we were to form an intention to change the shape of this body from sitting to standing. Now we can all do this. We've done it probably millions of times, I guess, since we were children. But let's do it with particular attentiveness. I like to imagine, though it would no doubt be fatal, but I like to imagine as though I were moving in thick honey sometimes. It's like, just how would it be if you were so attentive and be aware of the space as you move into it? So in the next minute or so, I invite you, see how it is to stand up and find a place to stand. And if you lose track of yourself, then you just start again. It's not a test. Lots of aching and creaking in this body. I had the great privilege of having Ruth Dennison as my teacher for almost 40 years, and she introduced a movement into Buddhist practice. And one of the things that she would do is simply this. I'll do some simple motions, see about mirroring them. It's not about getting it right, but about just be present in this that you take to be your body as it moves. And letting your breath come and go as it wants to. One of the things Ruth would say was, if you're too restless to sit, move, make up some movements. If you'd like to meditate before you go to bed, but you just can't sit because you'll fall asleep, make up some movements. Oh, thank you. Only your best friends would tell you. I should be embarrassed, but I'm not. That was very kind. Thank you. How's the face for food? Okay. All right. Funny. Standing. Great wings. Letting these wings carry us as we soar through incredible space. Let your weight shift from one foot to the other and be in the body. And we could have them do some giant flapping like eagle wings or condor wings. Breathing in on the way up, out. And let's let ourselves twist all the way to the left. And then all the way to the right, letting the spine do its articulated twisting all the way to the left. Let the head go all the way to, and then to the right. And left. Feel your feet as they're rooted on the floor and your torso as you turn and stretch. And let your arms go high and low. And just stop where you are. Feel the shape. We have this remarkable proprioceptive sense that can tell, notice how far apart your hands are. Notice where they are. And then let this movement occur again for a moment and then stop. Feel your shape. Know the shape. And then again, letting some rather large movements of stretching in any fashion you wish. And then stop. Life of the body and the mystery of awareness. And again, let there be some large movements, including letting your feet come off the floor and be aware of the whole body as it bends, twists, orients itself differently. And then stop. Be a statue for a moment. A breathing, living statue. Like that. There's a fellow here in Portland who paints himself with spray paint. And then stands, gets postures and stands. And then one more time, lots of big space. And then let's do one more thing, which would be to let your right hand be up in the air, and then let it find another hand, and just notice how it can touch, and then come back. Nothing fancy. Maybe find another right hand to just reach and be aware of the moment of touching, contact. And then another one. Just thought of the Sistine Chapel. There's God's hand and who is it? Who is it? It's Adam. Yeah, duh. Right. Right. All right. Let's find our way back to sitting. But notice how you get there. Don't abandon presence. Gregory. I love you too. Oh, that one's acting up. Please use this one.
All right. Okay. Are you talking about the program after? Or is that separate? Okay. Lots of announcements. All right. I think I'm missing the appropriate papers. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, we got a whole lineup of announcements. All right. Hi. Good morning. I'm Gregory. I recognize most of you. If you don't know who I am one of the Dharma teachers here, and most recently playing the role of PIMC manager. It's a big hat that falls off frequently, trying to figure it out. One of the things I wanted to talk about today is fall classes and how we're going to communicate those. So one thing that I just wanted to let everybody know, because I'm kind of learning about how we communicate here. So we have three main ways that we're getting to know each other and how we're keeping everybody in touch with what's going on at PIMC. So our webpage has all the current events and current classes. So if you ever just want to find out what's going on, the front page has pretty much everything up to date and links to sign up. So you can always go to the website. The website is like the primary place that you can go. Then we have our email list, and then we have a Google group. And it's important to know that those are not the same thing. If you're on our email list, that means you're going to get the flyers for classes directly into your email. So you're going to get the full color flyer with the links for registration. If you are on the listserv, which is our Google group, that's actually more designed for you all to communicate with each other, to create that community. We forward the flyers to that listserv, but depending on how you set it up, you will not get the attachments or the photos, and sometimes it's all scrambled. So make sure you're on the contact list also if you're just on the other one, because we're starting to realize that not all the information comes through on that second server, and it's not designed to do that. If you go on the web page, there is a quick links box, and you can sign up for both of those. You can just click on it. It takes 2 seconds and put in your email, and you'll be on those. So go to the web page. There's a little quick links box, and it has the link to the constant contact and the Google group. So that's something to know when we start sending out information. Another thing I wanted to talk about, well, we also have Facebook page, so for those of you who are on Facebook, Facebook is good too. We always forward everything to Facebook as far as most announcements are also forwarded there. So in light of the communication, I just wanted to remind everybody that we have grown so much in the last few years. It used to be that 50 people in this room was considered large, and now we're over 100 oftentimes on Sunday. We used to have 3 teachers, we now have 6. And so when we've noticed that when we send out information about classes and events and things like that, that we were starting to get concerned because we'd have to send out like 12 or 15 different emails to get everybody up to date on what was going on. So what we're starting to do is going to be sending out more newsletter emails. So in the newsletter, there'll be multiple events, so your inbox won't be as cluttered. So in the spirit of this, we've created a fall catalog of classes. Now, normally we'd send out individual emails for each of the classes, and those emails would go out 5 or 6 times. So there'd be like 30 emails coming your way. This year, we've created an actual catalog. Today at 11, if everything works out all right, you will get the updated version if you're on our Constant Contact. That will have all the teacher bios, contact information, registration links. It is the final copy, so to speak, of our fall classes. And everything's in that document, so you can just go there and you can read about the classes and you can register. So when you start seeing those emails, you're going to get less emails, individual emails, but the emails will have more events in there. So open those emails, check out the fall catalog. We've got 6 different classes coming up. And so check that out. Just wanted to keep everybody updated. So about the classes, I'm just curious, how many people have taken a class at PIMC? Oh yeah, tons of people. Sweet. So classes are a big thing. Classes are the other part of our practice. So during the week, we have our sits, right? We have our Sunday sit. We've got Wednesday. We've got gym out in Beaverton. We have our Tuesday, Thursday, then gym sit. I can't remember what day that one is. Is that Monday? Tuesdays? It is Tuesday. Okay. And then our Sunday sit. So here we have time for a brief Dharma talk, mostly meditation practice, right? And then we disperse. The classes that we have at PIMC are an opportunity for a deep dive into the material, and even more importantly, time to spend with other meditators. Most students will tell you, if they've been to a class, that they keep really powerful friendships that begin in these classes and they carry them with them. So going to classes is a way of really getting to know your community. It's not just about coming and learning the information, because we disperse here so quickly. But coming for a 6-week class and coming week to week really gives you an opportunity to connect with other people in the community. So that's one thing that people report about classes, most importantly, is that they establish great Kalyanamita spiritual friendships in the classes. So much so that it's not uncommon at the end of a class for the whole class to say, can we just keep going? Like, what's next? So if you haven't taken a class, please sign up for something. If you have, we've got a bunch of things available. I'll speak to that in a second. A couple things about classes. So some of the classes have limited attendance sign-ups. Some of them are just open, and we can just keep taking folks. But some of the classes, by the nature of the class, are going to have a cap. So it's important to look into the catalog and see if you'd like to take something. Considering how much we've grown at PIMC, classes are expected to fill up. So last year, the Eightfold Path class filled up 2 weeks before the end date, and we had a waiting list of 8 people. And that was completely unexpected because we didn't realize there had been so many more people coming to PIMC. So classes used to be where you can kind of come at the last minute and there was plenty of space. The nonviolent communication class, same thing, was booked up both of the last iterations of that class. So get onto the catalog, look to see what you're interested in, sign up, knowing that some of those are going to have some wait lists before the end of the registration. Another thing you'll notice is that we have enough people and we've been doing these classes enough that we are now starting to offer intermediate classes. We have enough students who have taken the beginning classes, and students have asked for a deeper dive into the material with the teachers. And so this fall, we have our first intermediate class, which is going to be with Doug. It's going to be intermediate mindfulness. And you're going to see more of these types of classes that will carry us through the curriculum, because we have hundreds of people that have done the basics of mindfulness class. So our intermediate class is going to be a big class because it's the first time that's been offered. So if you've taken the basics, that would be a natural thing. If you're interested in taking a deeper dive, Doug describes it on the catalog, what that is. So be on the lookout for that. If you're looking for an introductory class, the Eightfold Path class and the Basics of Mindfulness are beginning classes, right? They're just an overview of the Eightfold Path class as far as all of the terminology you hear that Robert talks about on Sunday, the noble truths, the enlightenment factors, those kinds of things. The Basics of Mindfulness is more focused on practical meditation, so it's really a beginning guide to the meditation experience of Vipassana, insight meditation. So both of those, you can go into either of those classes if you haven't taken a class. We have our nonviolent communication, which is taught by Doyle Banks. If you've never taken an introduction to NVC, I highly recommend. How many people have taken an NVC class here? Yeah, the NVC class here is awesome. It's a combination of nonviolent communication and skillful speech in light of mindfulness. I've taken an intro to NVC like 5 or 6 times, and it's so powerful to take that. Everyone should take one separate from any meditation interest or anything like that. It will create more connectivity and intimacy in relationships. It helps heal relationships that have been strained. It helps with relationships in family, social life, workplace. It's just a powerful tool. And if you're a meditator, it really helps. So Doyle does it in the context of mindfulness. So it's really a great class. Gary Sanders is teaching a Brahma Viharas class, a class on loving kindness. He doesn't teach this very often. So if you're interested in getting into that class, please sign up. The last time we did it was several years ago. Most of us struggle with the loving kindness practices, how to do them, why we do them. We ask questions like, what if I don't feel loving? Am I supposed to still be doing this? The loving kindness practices can be challenging for folks. So it's a 6-week class. If you've ever really wanted to get a deeper understanding of how to do them and what they are, this is a great class. And again, it's only offered every so often, so take a look at that. If a heartfelt, centered practice is what you want for a few weeks in the fall, take a look at that one. And then we have Robert's class. Will you say some stuff about yours? Okay, you want to do it that way? Okay. I don't want to leave Robert out because Robert, of course, has a class as well. Let's see. Okay. There's a few other people that have announcements, so I'm just going to read this down real quick. Were you going to talk about engaging the Dharma? Should I skip that one? Yeah. Okay. Then let's have Vic come up because Vic, you had your announcement. And then you can go and then...
Test 1, 2, 3.
All right. Let's see if this can work. Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Vic. I think Patricia is going to talk a little bit more about engaging the Dharma, but as you guys know, there was a survey that went out a little while ago that said, what are the issues that are most important to the Sangha? And by an overwhelming majority of about 65 to 70%, that was about global warming, climate change. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you folks believe that climate change is a problem and something that, all right? So we got some couple double hands too. How many of you folks would like to do something about it? How many of you folks would like to do something about it today? So join us at 12:30, right after the program. We have this really cool program where, first of all, we're going to eat cookies that KB's baked. KB's husband has baked. We've got a lot of other goodies. We're going to be giving away some cool stickers for people who write letters to their legislators. First, we'll talk to you about the issues. We'll say, here's why it's important, here's what you can do about it. And then we'll help you write letters. We'll help you find the people that you need to send the letters to. And we've got stamps, we've got envelopes, we've got paper, and you just get to hang out and be with people like-minded, like you, who want to do something about global climate change. Robert's going to give a 10-minute talk about how you can have a sense of agency about doing something. You know, we're going to talk about fear in just a minute, but if you have fear about global climate change, what can you do about it? How can you have a sense of agency about it? How can you do that with wise speech? So a lot of cool stuff. Hang out after the program, and we can do some pretty cool stuff. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Patricia. I am kind of heading up the Engaging the Dharma initiative that we have going here at PIMC, which is a way of taking what you learn here and putting it into effect in our daily lives, helping to address some of the problems that we're facing in the world today from a Buddhist perspective. So we've got this great workshop coming up, and I've taken a look at some of the materials that have been prepared, and it's going to be really amazing. So if you have the time to come and help work on the forest issues here in Oregon, that's what we're going to be doing today. Next week, we're going to be having our monthly Engaging the Dharma meeting after the Dharma talk, and we're going to be looking at what we're going to be doing this fall. And there's two main things that are going to be coming up. We'll have more information coming out about those this coming week, and just a very, very brief preview of what that's going to be. We're going to be putting together a training called the Eco-Sattva training. We won't be putting it together. We'll be taking part in it. It's put together by the One Earth Sangha, which is a nationwide group of Buddhist organizations that are working on this same thing. And it's going to be a 6-session program that we'll be having over the fall. And it's going to be really good, taught by a lot of different Buddhist leaders. We're going to have a group here at PIMC that's going to be doing that. So come next week, find out more about that, and we'll start putting together the details of where we're going to meet and all of that stuff. Also, this month, we're going to be taking part in the climate strike that's happening September 20th and 27th. Michael Midgell is going to be heading that up. He's up there. Do you want to wave? Yeah. So if you have questions about that, he's the person to talk to. He's going to be giving more information about that next week. It is part of a worldwide day of support for the young leaders that are doing the Fridays for the Future walkouts from schools, and headed up by Thunberg, the young woman from Sweden who's been such an outspoken advocate for youth in terms of climate change. So again, we'll get more info posted on the website and an email about that, but come next week. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just, I just wanted to read off these last few things. Okay, so just our normal stuff that's going on. So we have our first Saturday day long. That's going to be with Jim. That's on September 7th. Those retreats are awesome. I've been involved in 3 or 4 of those now. If you have not done a day long yet, that first Saturday, those are great. Usually there's 15, 20 people. We spend a day in noble silence, small little Dharma talks, but mostly practice. Those are really great opportunity to jumpstart your meditation. People are reporting that if they come to those regularly, that it's really impacting their weekly sits. And that's a real nice, quiet, relaxing, refreshing opportunity. So please check that out if you haven't come. Then we have, see the classes, we already talked about that. Volunteer retreat, September 21st. Robert, you might want to say more about that. That's going to be also on the website. We have Buddhist movie night, also September 21st, and looks like we'll be screening American Beauty. I had a chance to go to the Buddhist movie night a while back. That's a really good time, too, if you haven't gone. And our potluck's coming up September 8th. That's all the basics.
Did you get to change? I didn't tell you. You couldn't have gotten it. Christine and I are doing it the week before.
Okay, I did not put that in the, I can put it back into,
Oh, so it's pulled out.
I pulled it out because I didn't know when you were going to do it.
Excellent.
So I can put it back in.
Let's put it back in.
Okay, perfect. All right, Avi? Yeah.
All right, use this one.
This one's clear.
All right. So, hi, Sangha. Brief logistics note for the Engaging the Dharma thing. There's been a flurry of movement and sort of how this is going to be arranged. So the presentation is going to be in here. We're going to set up a screen that will be happening 12:30 after the Dharma talk. If you cannot stay here for the presentation, but you want to write a letter, letter writing materials will be in the living room, and I imagine the stickers will be there because that's the only reason that people would want to write letters, right? So you'll get your stickers. Just wanted to make sure we were all clear. So if you want to see the presentation, be back in the Dharma Hall, 12:30, please.
Well, there's a lot happening, isn't there? The place is hopping. I will briefly mention the worldly truth that your financial support of PIMC is crucial. And many of you, I know, received a letter in the last week or so, and the email appeal will go out probably later today. And the request is that you, all of us, recognize that as things have grown, our expenses have gone up, and we need to increase PIMC's inflow by about 15%. And so if you have a monthly contribution you do through the stewardship circle, if you can, think about it. Maybe raise that by 15 or 20 or 30%. And it's this wonderful opportunity we have to go like this: mine or ours? And to recognize that I am in I guess the other teachers have this too, and Avi also, to be in the position of hearing the personal testimonials of people coming and saying, often tearfully, that this place changed my life. Right? I had no idea that I could change that I could open my heart like this and become connected with people. Or, I am finally leaving my marriage. It's become clear. Or I am finally entering a marriage because it's become clear. I'm finally able to accept what's happened with my child or the world better, and I'm sleeping again. That kind of thing happens all the time. So this is a very effective crucible for transforming lives. And so if you are in a position that you can help with that, the Dharma bowl is over there. There's a Dharma basket, not a basket back there, it's a box. And also you can make contributions online. So you're invited to participate in that way. I think I want to do this way. For those of you at home, the sound is going to go blank for a few minutes. I'm going to play a song here that if I play it with you folks receiving it, the YouTube broadcast will be blocked out for copyright reasons. So you could look it up and play it along with this. It's called You Are Your Mother's Child, and it's by Connor Oberst. So Jennifer, my wife, came across this last week and played it for me. And so I invite you, would you turn the sound mute now? Good? Ian, thanks. Well, could you close that window for me, please? So I heard that, and found myself deeply moved. If I got this here, it's on here. From the Buddha. Thus should you look upon this changing world. All component things are impermanent. All component things are subject to dissolution. See all of this world as a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. Thus should we look upon this changing world. All component things are impermanent. All component things are subject to dissolution. See all of this world as a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. That song has particular poignance in our house right now, in that we have another child going away from home and headed off to college. I've been through it a few times, but it's kind of big. And there's fear. And fear is one of our great protectors. Right? We as a species, as mammals, we wouldn't make it if we didn't have fear. Because fear alerts us. Fear connects the whole fight-flight syndrome, fight-flight blessing in a way. That to make it through the ravages of the natural world, we had to have, and really still do, you hear that snap in the woods, and it's really important that we become hyper attentive, or some strange sound happens in the car, or we see something coming in from this corner. And it's really important that the system goes, whoa, what's that? And so, and it's so remarkable. We can go into fear in a second, but then the chemistry is in us, and then it takes really some time for that to work its way out of the system. So it's a important survival mechanism. Let me ask you this. Please raise your hand if you're aware of fear as an ongoing companion in your life. Do you work with it consciously in your meditation? Raise your hand. So you do. Okay. So this, I hope, will broaden that picture and also maybe make fear more acceptable, knowing its inevitability. So what are the sources of fear? I started out with a song and with a poem on impermanence. The fact that everything is always changing and subject to utter change makes life scary. Let me show of hands. How many of you have experienced in this lifetime really serious illness of a child? How about moderate illness of a child? How about the fear of what's going to happen to one's parents? The fear of what's going to happen to one's loved ones in general, one's children. You know, I remembered as I was putting together these 3 points I wanted to be sure to talk about. When my son, who's now 37 and has 2 sons of his own, the first year and a half or so, I stayed home, and my wonderful mother-in-law, Joan, who now deceased, was there. And so we contained him for the first year and a half. But then times changed and he needed to have broader experiences. And so he started getting in other people's cars. Now, other people's cars were probably no more dangerous than my car, but it was really awful that I can't control it. I had a marvelous therapist at that time, and he did a guided meditation with me in which I got quiet, and then I went in, and then he helped me conjure up the Buddha, and then it was very interesting because and the idea was to share the responsibility with this archetypal figure. And there was someone else who wanted to come in, and I discovered it was Jesus. Now, it was very interesting because I thought Christianity had been left a long ways behind, but there was Jesus. And so in the end, I wound up sobbing and handing Luke, my son, over that he never was mine anyway. And so I offer him back, and I'll do my part, but really the safety of our loved ones isn't up to us, because we can only do a little bit. So, fear. Some of the fear that I carry, I inherited from my parents. Right? We hand on to our children whatever we haven't metabolized ourselves and whatever we can't think about. And some of it comes from experiences in childhood. My dad was a very marvelous human being and very gifted in many ways. But he also was a really bad terminal alcoholic. He never stopped drinking. And he drove drunk all the time. And we were afraid that something bad was going to happen. One time, I guess in his 60s, he came home drunk and really angry at some truck driver who turned into him. And so there were tire tracks all on the side of his car. Now, I don't know if the driver turned into him or whether he fell asleep at the wheel. But there was this fear, which persists. There's something, it's like, something bad's going to happen. And of course, lots of bad things are going to happen. But there's this, it's, I would call it a personal neurotic fear that comes out of childhood experience. And everyone that I've ever met and talked with in any kind of depth has these small t traumas and sometimes capital T traumas that we carry with us as personality, as character. Please raise your hand if you recognize that in yourself, right? We're not likely to get rid of them, in my discovery. Way back when I thought I would do therapy and meditate, and then that part of my personality would be gone. And while it's improved a lot, working with the trauma and getting the emotions to move through and so on is very helpful. Those patterns are there and they persist. And so there's something to, quote, work with. And I want to talk about that in a moment. So just a few reminders of the things that I'm aware of that fear can arise from. Sickness, the fear of sickness. Or when sickness is here, will it ever go away? In oneself and in one's loved ones. Old age. What's it going to be like? Will I have a heart attack like my father, the death part, or will I have a stroke like my mom and be incapacitated in a nursing home with a dislocated shoulder for 6 years? Will there be enough money? Will there be anyone to take care of me? So those are big, aren't they? That's one, actually, there's a particular American twist on that one, because we're the only modern nation that doesn't take care of our elderly. And that we could, will I wind up on the street? And that's, I teach in Canada, and Canadians don't have that at all. It's just not there. And Canadians aren't so desperately trying to save for their retirement to have their X millions of dollars so that they'll be able to have something for their, the crucial things for the old age, because it's taken care of by the state. Big difference. I've talked about it many times there. My mother, this is a long time ago now, 17 years, but my mother was in a nursing home with a private room, a nice place, and for the private room, she paid an extra $600 a month. Right? So, what about the fact that when the people who are in charge of making big decisions, leadership positions in the country, are mad or subscribe to values that don't fit yours at all? And when the fact that the world economic system is at risk and that there's threats of war, this can provoke an underlying, and for many of us does, an underlying sense that something's really bad is happening and that I have zero control. Maybe influence, but zero control. Now I'm aware that talking about these will provoke some of it, and but I promise we'll do something to at least open the door to some relief from that. The Amazon is burning. Tens of thousands of fires. Intentional fires. People wanting more land to grow more food to make a living. And there's leadership, this guy Bolsonaro, who believe in that. So we can know that there are belief systems around the world. There are people in leadership positions who are unconscious and unaware and in a certain way uncaring because of their own narcissism. It's scary, isn't it? One more piece. We're being trained to be more and more afraid of mass shootings. I read some stuff the other day about what's going on as the children go back to school and all the mass shooting training. This whole wave of terror. And we're getting this idea that we're in greater and greater danger when, in fact, we're not. There's much less violence in the United States now than there was 15 or 20 years ago. And certainly when we were children, the place was streaming with blood by contrast with now. But we're getting this whole thing. They're now selling children's backpacks with Kevlar in them so that the children can hold them up. Now, I had some of this with the nuclear threat back when I was a kid. Duck and cover, sort of. But there's this upswell, and some of it's paranoid, a lot of it's paranoid, but it still results in us being afraid, which then supports more and more addiction, more and more alienation. So, whatever shall we do? Civilization has always been unstable. And we've always been unsafe. Because we are inherently unsafe. Right? I could fall off this chair in the next heartbeat. Oh, he had an aneurysm, or oh, he had that stroke he'd thought of, or because the body is inherently unstable. I am of the nature to age. I am of the nature to sicken. I am of the nature to die. And there's no predicting when any of that happens. So it's no wonder that we live with fear. And what we tend to do is to say, well, I'm not going to be aware of that, and we repress it. I've had lots of circumstances. I have 2 grandchildren, 2 boys. I'll see them Tuesday morning. That'll be nice. I was out walking with them and my son a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking about this class that I have coming up this fall, where we're going to read the book, The 5 Invitations. And I wrote the invitations down. What are they? Don't wait. Welcome everything. Push nothing away. Bring your whole self to every experience. Find a place of rest in the middle of things. Cultivate don't know mind. Be fully alive. Experience everything fully. And I was talking about this, and my son said, you know, Dad, I'm not in a spot I want to be thinking about death much because, and he's going to get choked up, because I have these guys. And it's very understandable. And the fact is that the fear is there. It's there in every parent, for sure. I know I was on a retreat with Stephen Levine one time, and I had Luke, this is 36 years ago, as an infant, 7-month-old baby in my arms. And Stephen was talking about impermanence and death, and he did this thing about the story about the cup. The cup is always broken. The cup is already broken, so why not enjoy the cup? And then he said, and I don't know, and Luke made a little noise, and then Stephen said, live with your loved ones as though they were already dead. And one doesn't want to think that way, but in fact, to allow the reality in, provokes the fear, and then we can do something about it. We can realize how much of our lives, how much of our life energy we spend in denial. Story from the Buddha. A merchant was worrying about something financial, or he went to the Buddha, and the story's longer than this, but this is the essence of it. The Buddha said to him, "O merchant, what if there were a giant coming from the north whose feet were 1 mile long and 1/2 mile wide and crushing everything on his way? What would you think then?" He said, "Well, this would be really very bad." What if there were a giant coming from the west and the south and the east and in between? And in each case, the merchant said, "Well, this would be really very frightening and scary." And then the Buddha said, "Well, of course, death is coming." And so many of the things that I certainly have this, I'm anxious about are absolutely silly. Because the reality is everything is impermanent. It's all going to go. So what then shall I do? Shall we do? This, I forget who it was even. I was talking with a friend recently, a Dharma friend. It was Paige Cogger, who's going to be teaching here in the fall, a wonderful teacher from Ashland. She said, we're in the palliative care business. That our purpose is to reduce suffering on our way to the end of our lives. To live more happily, more lovingly, more joyfully, and less reactively. Because we understand there's a treatment process. And the primary treatment process is to gradually put down our denial and to open our hearts. So what to do? Refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is foundational. That any object, any person, any social structure, any national structure that we take refuge in is really not the wisest place, because they're all up for grabs. It's hard to take that in, I think, but I listened to that book recently. I mentioned it last week. I always get the title wrong. An Invitation to Future Corpses and Those That Love Them, Sally Tisdale's book. And one of the things she talked about there was cemeteries, and how in many places in the world, you only get to have the little cremains there for a year or 2 or 3 because there's so much demand. And so then they have to clear things out and make room for more coming in. And then ultimately all cemeteries they all go away eventually. That we think we're putting a body somewhere permanently, but of course nothing's permanent. It's always being recycled. Which incidentally, in my research, it's now possible in Oregon to do green burial and just get buried in a shroud. No cement box, you can just get lowered into the earth like we've done for a long time. And then it's recycled. So, the treatment, not to miss the chance for that. Refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And then training the mind. Developing some concentration. Developing the ability to, within right reason, no matter what's happening, to be able to come to the breath, come to the body sitting, and go into quiet. And to suppress thoughts, memories, images, and to actually, one of these, find a place of rest in the middle of things. That's one of the ways to do it, one of the invitations. Find a place of rest, which is here, now. And then there's the practice of insight meditation, or vipassana, in which we really develop the capacity of concentration and mindfulness and all the enlightenment factors to actually turn toward whatever's happening and realize how vaporous it is, how it really is a mirage, how it is, this life is a dream. Which then allows us to engage more fully because we're not holding back. We're not frightened of the contact. I remembered, I think I talked about this here a few weeks ago, a long time ago, my first marriage. We were in therapy and had a particularly wonderful opening in the therapy. We went outside, and my wife was in her car, and I leaned in to kiss her, and it was the most erotic, sensuous experience I'd ever had in my life. It was just open. And then I had the thought, oh, she could have a car accident. And they turned to rubber. It's like, why do this? You know, this is silly. But there was a huge opening of the heart, and then the fear, this is not safe. I dare not be this open, because what could happen? So this is the place of rest in the middle of things. And Dharma practice really does lead to that. I've been with many people, sometimes deep practice provoked by some catastrophe, right? Some big loss, some death, some bad diagnosis. And then a person really starts taking their meditation seriously. And 15 minutes a day, as useful as it is for stress management, and it is remarkable for stress management, there's something more to do with meditation, which is to really develop deep concentration and deep mindfulness and deep penetrative wisdom so that we really can suffer less. Just you connecting with this, it makes sense. It's an investment in less investment in trying to feel safe and happy through consumption or activity, and more tuning into our inherent safety. I want to speak to one of the fears, and we've talked about this at some length. One of the things to do with some fears, action really is helpful, right? Take care of the problem. And being responsible and responsive to the problem is one of the things that leads us to activism. And so to be active and to do what we can, to write letters, to do whatever we're drawn to do, but then to go beyond that and realize that the activism is a strategy. It's a useful strategy, and it may in fact help. But the real strategy of safety and freedom is inside. It's the Dharma. I take refuge in the Dharma. One other thing too, sometimes when there's danger, like and fear with another person or a circumstance, is to create really good boundaries. And to do the things that we know as human beings to reduce the danger. But there's no way to remove the danger because the danger is inherent. We took birth, and so we're not going to last. Are the kids there? So perhaps I will stop there before they break down the door. So I hope I hope that the promise of that is as clear as the fears themselves. And one more thing. If there's fear, where does it exist in the body? To find its locus, because it's a bioelectronic phenomenon. And it's not, if we can't assume that position of awareness and notice what it is, then we think we are the fear. I'm afraid. As opposed to, I am that which knows, and there is this phenomenon of fear which exists in this mammal that I've taken birth as. So this really is not a way to get away from the fear. It's a way to go so deeply into the fear, sadness, depression, anger, jealousy, to go into whatever's happening so intimately and so humanly that we then find a shift into being more loving and open and accepting. Think of Tara Brach's term, radical acceptance. So, dear friends, fellow experiencers of life, thanks for coming, thanks for listening, thanks for letting me play this role. And now let's make a big circle and welcome the kids and do our little closing ritual. Thank you to those who joined us at home. Test one. Meh. Good morning. Hi. Hello, precious young people. That's a weird thing to say, isn't it? Hi, kids. That's better. So please find a hand to hold, or two. Yeah, there we go. Can I hold your hand? Thank you. Yay. How'd it go first time? You made a new friend. Yay, that's good. Great. Huh. Made some new friends. How's that go? Make new friends, but keep the, join me, old. One is silver and the other's gold. A circle is round, it has no end. That's how long I want to be your friend. What? I know the rest of the song. You know the rest? Go ahead. Here, hang on. Huh, where is it? Can you see them? Here, you want to lead us? That'd be cool. Oh, come on, microphone, don't mess. Oh, here we go.
You have another, put them together, we have each other.
I have a head, you have another, put them together and we have each other. Yay! All right, we're going to move on. All right, may I hold your hand again? So every single one of us is a unique blessing to the universe. Why not give the hand of the person to your right a little squeeze and think a kind blessing thought. May this person be well, happy, safe, free from fear, danger. And the person on your left giving their hand a little squeeze. What would your wish be for them? And now around the circle, to all of us, to all of our hearts, our bodies, what would your wish be for all of us in this room, and in fact, all of us on the earth? May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May we all know happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all awaken from the trances of fear and anger and hatred. Really love each other. So take a moment to let your eyes rove around the group, meet. Eyes meeting eyes. Heart meets heart. What if there really is only one consciousness? Really? So we meet ourselves in every gaze. So now we come to the singing, though before that I want to make one request. It's a volunteer request. If there is someone here who might understand or learn about microphones and broadcasting, we could really use someone who had those skills. I tinker with it, but it's not my realm. So if you know how to do that, we need you. If we don't find you, if we don't have you, we're going to hire somebody because it's just too crazy to not have it work well. So there's an opportunity. And who is going to be the... Are you going to do it together? So will you come sit over with them too? It's both of you. Oh, you want to squeeze in too? You sure? Okay. 1, 2, 3. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much. Well, and now it's that exciting moment when we all take a big deep breath and not yet, and then we blow out the candle on the proper count. Have you got a wish? Not yet. Now we're going to practice patience. Done. Tick, 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 tick. Hang on. All right. Not yet. I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3. Blow. Wow. It's not really fair to the candle. It doesn't stand a chance. So thank you all. Please come back and have a cup of tea and visit, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
Stay for the letter writing workshop.
Oh, don't forget the letter writing workshop, which is in half an hour here. Take your friends and keep the old